I have logged on. मैनू तो नहीं पूछा. करो join तुसी.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਸਰ. ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਰਵਿੰਦਰ ਜੀ, ਕੀ ਹਾਲ ਆ?
ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਸਰ, ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ.
ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਇਆ ਸੀ ਸਵੇਰੇ.
ਹਾਂ,
ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸ਼ੱਕ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇਦਾਂ ਨਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਵੇ. ਮੈਂ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਵੀ ਚੈੱਕ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ. ਸੋ ਇਟ ਵਾਸ ਓਕੇ ਇਨ ਦ ਮਾਰਨਿੰਗ. ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਵੀ ਠੀਕ ਹੈਗਾ. ਸੋ ਮੇਬੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਨ ਦੀ once the session is over we'll reset the password.
Yeah, could have.
How was yesterday?
We missed you.
But show was good.
Yeah.
Enjoyed the participation segi.
Almost full see.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Great.
और तुम सुनाओ, गर्मी कैसी है? 2 दिन पहले it was 49.5.
I saw this. जैसी गड्डी तो.
हाँ जी. It was horrible.
आज बहुत लू चल रही है बाहर.
बहुत. स्पेशली जिथे ट्रैफिक ज्यादा है ना, उथे फिर बहुत ज्यादा लोगों ने गड्डियां दी हीटिंग एसी ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਹੀਟ ਹੋਰ ਵਧਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ.
ਰਾਈਟ. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੱਸੋ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਲੌਗਡ ਇਨ.
ਹਾਂ, ਮੈਂ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਕਰ ਦੇਣਾ.
Gina has joined.
Ji, even Dr. Sarjot has also joined. Dr. Behr has also joined.
Yeah.
Gina ji, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. How are you?
Sat Shri Akal, Dr. Sahab. Sat Shri Akal, Dr. Sahab. Sat Shri Akal, Sarjot ji.
Hello, Sat Shri Akal, Sarjot. Sat Shri Akal, Gina. Hello.
डॉक्टर साहब ने अपने आप ਨੂੰ म्यूट क्यों ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ?
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਰਵਿੰਦਰ ਜੀ, ਸੌਰੀ ਆਈ ਡਿਡਨਟ ਨੋਟਿਸ. ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ.
ਨਹੀਂ, ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਸਰ. ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਫੋਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੁੱਕਦੇ ਜਾਣਬੁੱਝ ਕੇ.
ਹਾਂਜੀ,
ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫੋਨ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੁੱਕਦੇ ਜਾਣਬੁੱਝ ਕੇ.
ਫੋਨ ਮੈਂ ਜਾਣਬੁੱਝ ਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੁੱਕਦਾ. ਇਹ ਸਟੇਟਮੈਂਟ ਦੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਥੋੜੀ ਬੈਕਗ੍ਰਾਉਂਡ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ.
ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੇਰਾ ਇੱਕ ਦੋਸਤ ਹੈ ਡੀਐਸਪੀ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਕਹਾਂਗਾ ਯਾਰ ਲਖਬੀਰ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰਾ ਫੋਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੁੱਕਦਾ, ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹੇਗਾ ਤੂੰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਫੋਨ ਨਵਾਂ ਲਿਆ ਕੇ ਦੇ, ਮੈਂ ਤੇਰਾ ਫੋਨ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ.
ਨਹੀਂ, ਬਟ ਆਈ ਡੋਨਟ. ਡਿਡ ਯੂ ਕਾਲ? ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ?
I did sir, twice, thrice.
ਨਹੀਂ, ਮੈਂ ਫਿਰ ਆਈ ਵੁੱਡ ਹੈਵ ਮਿਸਡ ਇਟ. ਆਈ ਐਮ ਸੋ ਸੌਰੀ.
ਨਹੀਂ, ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲੀ ਲੈਟਰ ਵੀ ਭੇਜੀ ਔਰ ਫੋਨ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ, ਬਟ ਕੱਲ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਸ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ.
ਹਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਉਹਦਾ ਤੇ ਯਾਦ ਹੈ ਬਲਵਿੰਦਰ ਦਾ ਫੋਨ ਆਇਆ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਕੱਲ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਯੂਕੇ ਹਾਈ ਕਮਿਸ਼ਨਰ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ 14 ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਨਾ ਇੱਕ ਐਡਵਾਂਸ ਟੀਮ ਆਈ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਕੱਲ ਈਵਨਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੋ ਵੀ ਵਰ ਟੂ ਸੈਟ ਅਪ ਆਲ ਦ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੋਕਾਲਸ ਫॉर ਹਿਸ ਕਮਿੰਗ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਮੈਂ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਾ ਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਿਆ ਪਰ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਮਹਾਉ ਆਈ ਮਿਸਡ ਇਟ ਇਨਵੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਸੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਫੋਨ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਮਿਸ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਆਈ ਡਿਡਨਟ ਨੋਟਿਸ ਇਟ ਆਈ ਐਮ ਸੋ ਸੌਰੀ ਸੋ ਸੌਰੀ
ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਨਵਾਂ ਲਿਆ ਕੇ ਦੇਣੇ ਆ ਨਾ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਵੀ ਗੁੰਜਾਇਸ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹੇਗੀ
I'll wait for an exclusive ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ exclusive the most exclusive screening.
Good evening. Hello.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Good evening.
How's everyone?
Oh, wonderful. Good, great. Sizzling.
Sizzling, I know.
Sarjo, ਤੁਸੀਂ your host Gina ਨੂੰ ਬਣਾ ਦਿਓ ਤੁਸੀਂ co-host ਜਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਬਣਾ ਦਿਓ I can also
Hello sir, no.
So Avinder ji, you will begin with the one आप जैसे करते हैं पंजाबी में. Then I will, and then we will hand over to Makarand for his talk, and then at the end we have hopefully 3-4 people who will ask some questions.
Okay.
So congratulations, Preeti, for this Alliance scholarship thing. It is, I just went through it a couple of hours ago.
I just feel that we should take advantage, of
Yes.
some of the things that they are proposing that we could collaborate.
Right.
Baki to it really doesn't matter. But if some students can benefit or some, we need to just talk about it and then see if we can also, take over, do something with the lecture series or residencies or something, then that may be a good idea.
Sure. Just we need to apply our mind to it.
Ji, bilkul. That's
what we come up with.
Hi, Kishore.
Hi, I'm here in time, on time too. Unlike
Hello,
last time.
Kishore. Hello.
Always on time.
ਕੀ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ ਜੀ?
बस ठीक है जी की हाल चाल ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ठीक ठाक हो?
बस ठीक ठाक. And I am seeing the movie star also here. The masquerade movie star. Huh?
Absolutely.
क्या बात है
I was asked to join at 5:45, so I thought I should be on.
Hello.
Good evening, Doctor. Good evening.
Good evening to all.
Good evening. How
Good
are you?
evening. Good evening.
So, please
Gina?
help me out. What am I supposed to do? I'm a bit confused.
You're supposed to give us a talk for half an hour.
Okay.
Hopefully
Okay.
around the book.
Okay.
Okay. And then after that, we'll have 3 or 4 people from the audience, or maybe more, who will possibly bring in some questions.
Okay. Sounds
That
good.
is what, yeah.
Sounds
मैंने
like
आपको लिखा था that
जी,
is
जी,
what
जी,
format we
जी,
should follow. Because I think that, mostly people would not have read the book. So it's just as well
Okay,
that they get some
okay.
idea of what it contains. Everybody's aware, of course, of all the stuff that was happening. Reading about it, seeing it on the news, all of that, both from 2016 onwards, everybody's, fairly aware, fairly has taken sides, all of that is there. But it's better to hear from an insider, just to know exactly how the events unfolded and
Okay.
your own opinions, views. You've been there for such a long time. I don't know whether you remember, but we did meet a long time ago. I used to work with the book review very, very long ago.
Oh, of course. Oh my, it's such a small world. Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah. So it
So
was.
now you've moved.
So on
you've
that
moved to
note,
Chandigarh?
Sorry?
Have you moved?
No, I'm in Delhi and Amritsar,
Okay,
between
okay.
both places actually.
Okay.
So on that note, Dr.
Ji.
Vajpayee,
Sorry?
on that note, Dr. Vajpayee, hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Professor Behel, and we have also met before in Guru Nanak Dev University. Do you recall?
Yes. I remember meeting the professor of linguistics.
We also met. I was Dean Academic Affairs at that point.
Okay, yeah. There was an HRDC. Yes, I remember.
Yes.
I remember.
Yes. So we had met at that time.
Okay, that's nice. So a little more about Majha House. Like, how did you guys start, and what's it all about?
We started Maja House with a small team actually of like-minded, interested people, and people who are interested in looking at books, looking
correct.
at, starting off different kinds of discussions, also having a cultural platform. We do a lot of poetry. We have baithaks where we just, choose a poet. Everybody brings their little favorite bits of poetry, reads it out to us. Sarabjot, whom you've just met, Dr.
Yes,
Bell,
yes.
is a really good poet, very, very strong and extremely good.
Yeah.
So those are all the things we enjoy. Arvinder, who is here, Arvinder Chamak, he acts and he paints and he writes poetry. So, I'm just saying, like, it's a bunch of like-minded people who decided to come together.
Correct.
2018.
Right. And it's based out of a particular place, or it's an online platform?
No, it's based out of a house, which is our home actually in Amritsar.
Okay, so it's an Amritsar-based platform.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
So we used to be doing in-person sessions.
Of course.
We've also done about 4 festivals, including for children.
Okay.
But then after COVID, we went online.
Correct.
The last 2 years have been pretty much everything online.
Correct. A huge challenge. And what's happened to the book review? Is it still on, or it's over
It
now?
is on, but I think, she's also, I guess everybody's sort of aging or whatever. So she's still doing it, but has handed over most of the production to Tulika or something like that. Because Tulika used to also be printing for us even earlier.
Yes.
So I think it's more or less from there now.
Okay. And of the 2 ladies, both are there, or what's the...
No, one moved away.
One moved away.
I think back to Chennai, and one is still here.
Chandrachari, and I think the husband, Mr. Chari, passed away or something.
Yeah, some years back. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Wow, it's good to catch up. It's been
going back into time.
Yes. Yes. I mean,
yeah.
It's such a small world. In fact, when it comes to writing, reading, publishing in India, that even after 20, 30 years, it's the same people who keep it going, in fact,
Yeah, and most people from Penguin, for example, are everywhere now. And,
of course.
Many new publishing houses.
Westland has also shut down. And there's a lot of drift now, with that lot as well. People don't know what to do and where to go.
Who?
Westland Publishing is shut down.
Yeah, but they've got something else going now, no? I think en masse, most of them are joined back. So.
Okay, what's it called? I mean, with Kartika and all, or with the same Gautam Padmanabhan?
No, with Kartika and all, and is it Pratilipi or one of these people who's put in money, and so they've restarted. So I think that soon they should be back. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
So I must say, I did a little speed read of the book.
Oh,
I didn't have that much time because then I needed to lend it to another person. And
yeah.
Though I was telling Preeti that I'd like to do a thorough reading of it later.
Please.
So I had just a day or day and a half to go through it, and I'm a very slow reader normally. So, but I managed some bits.
Yes. No, that's wonderful. So maybe you'll maybe ask some questions. I don't know.
Yes, I might. We'll take it up from where you you finish your talk today.
I actually had a plan, Preeti, to read an excerpt also.
Yeah, please. Yes.
Yeah.
So that people get a flavor and something that. Is kind of interesting, if you know what I'm trying to say. Or maybe even a couple. even, just short excerpts. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
people
sure.
get
Absolutely.
a sense of the feel for the book, that maybe, I don't know, I'm just thinking aloud rather than just, talking.
No, you should definitely. And I mean, I've given away my copy to Kishore, so I can't hold it up, but you please hold it up. Kishore, please
Which
hold
I
it
have
up.
lent further. Which I have lent further.
Yeah, I will
Acha,
hold
but you
it
have to
up
hold
at
it up.
the
Yeah.
beginning.
When
yeah.
I do the introduction, I'd be happy if
Yeah.
you would, or when you begin, then to please hold it up, and we
Yes.
will
Yeah.
put it out that.
Okay. And the brief bio I already sent you, right, Preeti? A very short one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
That I have. Yeah.
okay, that's much better than all sorts of stuff on Wikipedia, which is a bit.
Yeah, the Wikipedia also sometimes becomes completely outdated.
Yes.
Arvinderji, somebody is
See?
saying that the meeting has been locked by the host.
No, it's not like that. The waiting room is yes.
Niku is
yes.
also saying
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Niku is also saying that.
No.
Meenakshi saying that.
Got it.
Ji.
Got it.
Makarand ji,
Ji.
this is Gurupdesh from Amritsar. Good evening.
Hi, we were just talking about you because Sarjot ji was mentioning, do you remember when
Yeah.
you came to GNDU?
Yes, couple of times, I guess.
Yes,
Came a couple
indeed.
of times. And we
How
met
are
in.
you doing? How are you?
Well, I'm leading a retired life. I'm just relaxing.
Sounds
That
fantastic.
they are all the people who are very much pillars of
Yeah.
setting up Maja House also.
Yeah, good to see your book on JNU. We have heard a couple of talks on JNU earlier on the
Correct.
YouTube. Yeah, but it's good that you have now produced a full-length book on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. I'm just trying to figure out if my video works because I'm not in Amritsar. I'm in a very distant place, some 300 kilometers away from Amritsar, and my computer is partially ready for this talk.
But can we see you? Will
Yeah,
you
I'm
put
just
on
trying.
a video?
No, my phone, my computer doesn't have a proper camera. It's faulty. So I've added another one. Let me see if it works now. I've just added an external one. Let me see if it works. Does it? Okay, it does. Yeah.
Yes, we can now see you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's good. Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not in my usual formal. I'm at home, so I have been traveling the whole day. So
Okay.
it's my most casual rags which I'm wearing at home.
Well, I'm also in a kind of t-shirt, as you can see. If you like, I can. Preeti, I was going to ask you, shall I go and put on a shirt or is
Not
this
at all. I mean,
Not
this
at
is
all. You should put the shirt on. That's enough.
no, this is just an informal good conversation. That's it. And here, I mean, a talk and then some questions. So, Avinderji, are you going to open it up now and then allow everyone? And also Facebook, you will attach?
Is the waiting room issue?
Yeah, I said it's still 2 minutes to go and I'll connect it to the Facebook first.
Yes, link it to Facebook or please allow people then after that.
Yeah.
Is the waiting room issue resolved?
Huh?
Waiting room.
Huh?
Yeah, waiting room is there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Kishore is saying he's been muted.
Yes. Kishorji and Dr. Paranjape, please don't mute yourself during the session. You won't be able to unmute yourself because I've changed the settings.
okay?
So Kishore, please take care of this thing,
Okay. Yeah. I will keep myself unmuted throughout then, as you said.
You remain unmuted. So I'm going to connect it to the Facebook now.
All these weird new words.
I know. Makarand, where are you these days? Are you in Shimla or are you in Delhi these days?
No, I'm back at JNU. I finished my term actually last year. So
Okay, all right. Yeah.
I'm back at JNU, which feels
That's-
quite nice actually.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's right.
Something again wrong with the Facebook. It does happen. Anyways. All right, Preeti ji, I'm going to start as the Facebook is facing some problem, the linkage problem with the Zoom, because of somebody tried in Canada to open up the Maja House page in the morning. You must have gone through it.
Yeah, we got some message. No?
Yeah, and that is the reason that Zoom and Facebook, they are not connecting to each other at the moment.
Acha, okay.
Yeah. Anyways, जी आया नु खुश आमदीद अमृतसर दी इस खूबसूरत गर्म हवा दी धरती दे उत्तों मिठी पौन लैके एक खूबसूरत माजा हाउस दे प्लेटफॉर्म दे विच जिथे गल असी अखरां हरफां अल्फाजां ते किताबां दे उन्हां सफ़ियां दी करदे हां जो साडी तवारीख दा ही नहीं साडी आने वाली जिंदगी दा भी एक अहम हिस्सा हुंदियां ने हुण तक दे सफर दे विच असी कोई 400 ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ ਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਾਂ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਤੇ ਆਨਲਾਈਨ ਔਰ ਖੁਸ਼ਕਿਸਮਤੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਬੁਨਿਆਦ ਪ੍ਰੀਤੀ ਗਿੱਲ ਤੇ ਗੁੱਗੂ ਗਿੱਲ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਨੂੰ ਆ ਕੇ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਤਾਂ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਇੱਕ ਖੂਬਸੂਰਤ ਲਿਟਰੇਰੀ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਤਬਦੀਲ ਹੋਇਆ ਅੱਜ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਕੋਨਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਹਿੱਸਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਰਾਈਟਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਆਥਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਜਰਨਲਿਸਟ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਆਰਟਿਸਟਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਾਲ ਸੀ ਲੋੜ ਸੀ ਲੋਚਨਾ ਸੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਥੱਕਦੇ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੱਕਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਸੁਣਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ thanks to Preeti Gill for giving such a wonderful platform to Amritsar, not only to Amritsar but now the world at large. So Maja House is doing excellent work and we welcome you. ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਖੁਸ਼ਾਮਦੀਦ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਇਸਤਕਬਾਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਪ੍ਰੀਤੀ ਗਿੱਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਫਾਊਂਡਰ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਜ਼ਾਰਿਸ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ JNU ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਹੈ ਔਰ JNU ਦੀ ਉਸ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਹੈ ਜਿਹਦੀ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਤਵਾਰੀਖ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ 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 ਅਹਿਮ ਰੋਲ ਹੈ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਦੀ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੋਸਟ ਪਾਰਟੀਸ਼ਨ ਲਿਖੀ ਗਈ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਅਹਿਮ ਰੋਲ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਓਵਰ ਟੂ ਪ੍ਰੀਤੀ ਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਫਿਰ ਖੈਰ ਮਕਦਮ
Thank you very much, Alvinder. Welcome, everybody. It's 6 p.m. and it's time now for another edition of the Maja House Online Adda. Today we have a talk on one of India's premier educational institutions and one that has been in the news over the last few years. I'm talking about JNU. And our speaker today, Dr. Makarand Paranjape, has been a long-standing professor there, and he's currently the university's senior most professor. Makarand, I believe that's correct. His new book, JNU, Nationalism and India's Uncivil War. If somebody has it, can they please hold it up? I don't have my copy. JNU, Nationalism and India's Uncivil War. Which will form the basis of his talk this evening, is not merely a collection of anecdotes or personal experiences, but as he says in the preface, in the prologue in the book, that it's an informed insider's account of the cataclysmic changes in one of India's premier institutions of higher education. And during a 5-year period from 2016 to 2021, those are the events that we were all reading about, we were watching on the news, and we will now have Professor Paranjape talk to us about it. And I think for all of us, this is also like listening to a history of our times and of what Makarand calls also the ongoing transformation of the country. We've all been witness, as I said, to the changes and also perhaps to the transformations that have been happening. Some of us stand on this side, some of us stand on the other side of the line, but we cannot deny that a lot has changed, not only in JNU, in the country and in what we perceive around us. I mean, you know, the latest debates which we are seeing, the latest kind of violence we are seeing on television shows us the sort of the kind of political spectrum that we are also witnessing. So I'm going to let Professor Paranjape give us a ringside view of the happenings there and also to tell us, bring us up to date and tell us what's happening in JNU now. Makarand Paranjape is Professor of English at JNU, former director of the Indian Institute of Advanced Study in Shimla. He has over 50 books to his credit, in addition to hundreds of academic papers and popular articles. His latest books include Swami Vivekananda, Hinduism and India's Road to Modernity, New Perspectives in Indian Science and Civilization, and The Death and Afterlife of Mahatma Gandhi. Over to you now. And after we've listened to the talk, I'd really be happy to get in some audience questions. So please do listen carefully, and I'm looking forward to something that's going to actually pull out the strings from this talk and make us, you know, really understand what's going on. And I would like people who are questioning and people who have formulated questions to please come in as I call you out after the talk is over. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Preeti. Thank you, Arvinderji. Thank you, all the other friends who have joined us on a Saturday evening. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to talk to all of you and to have been invited to your wonderful Maja house. I think my interest in this book, in fact, in the controversies that JNU was engulfed by, came out of my primary belief in the life of the mind, you know, the importance of ideas, of debate, of dissent, and really the role of intellectuals in our society. Now, if I link it up to JNU directly, originally when it was founded after, you know, Jawaharlal Nehru passed away, we had a very interesting education minister, MC Chagla, and the vice, you know, president of India, the second president, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. And I feel deeply connected with them because they not only founded JNU, they also founded a Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, and they founded the Indian Institute of Advanced Study, which was an extraordinary thing to do after we had just come out of a war with Pakistan, if one remembers the context. And yet they found the time, the energy, and the resources to start some of these institutions so that the tradition of democratic thinking, debate, deep thinking could be maintained. And at its heyday, if you want to see JNU in a positive light, I always try to see things in a positive light, even before you try to criticize them. You must see them at their best. What were they meant to be as their ideal, you know? And then you see what happened to them, you know? And this is a method of reading, actually, which I develop in this book. I call it Intermedial Hermeneutics. And this links straight to what Preeti was trying to tell us just 5 minutes ago, which is that when you have a completely divided and polarized public space, which we find not only in India, but in most free societies all over the world. I'm sure we have people joining in from abroad, from Canada, from the US, from UK. And you see, ye to ghar ghar ki kahani hai, in the sense that the ideological extremes seem to have captured the middle ground. And people don't get along because they differ so vehemently, you know. And this is the problem, as I said, peculiar to free societies more than authoritarian societies. So if you just take it on a worldwide scale, we are right now in a stage where the world is being presented with two options. One is that you have authoritarian societies which are easier to manage, it would seem. Everyone thinks in one way. And you have these extremely messy and fraught and divided free societies, where whether you go to the US or whether you go to Canada or whether you go to England, the kind of divisiveness is really quite, should I say, worrying. And so what I do in this book is to say intermedial hermeneutics, which means that you have to find a way to steer between extreme positions, which are very reductive, okay? And that's why I said, if I take JNU at its best to begin with, it was supposed to be like a revolutionary type of university where you studied and you struggled, okay? You studied because you wanted to learn, and Marx also believed that it's only through deep study that you can change the world. And then you were an activist, you wanted to change society. You were a dreamer, you wanted equality, you wanted inqilab, whatever. So that was the idea of JNU to begin with. But if you think about it, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War, what you had ideologically is, if not a unipolar world, at least the idea of a universal socialism, which was fighting off a universal capitalism. That collapsed. In fact, China itself turned capitalist under Deng Xiaoping. And imagine a communist state, a state which abolishes private property, creating private property. These are the paradoxes of both history and economics. But in JNU, it resulted actually in a closure of the mind. And 2016 was the flashpoint, which is where the book, in a way, takes off. And I could see before my eyes that the entire university became sort of captured. Why I say captured? Because the university has 8,000 students, okay? And just 200 students brought everything to a standstill. So I might be a science student. I want to go to my lab. I want to do my experiments. I might be somebody else who, in computer science, okay, who wants a job desperately after 2 years of doing a master's or another year of doing, 2 years of doing an MTech. But suppose my labs are closed, my buildings are barricaded, and 200 students have brought the whole university to a standstill, which is not democratic either. And for 8 months, we saw this, the admin building occupied, students sleeping there, and every evening some political person coming. And then I felt that the entire university got hijacked from its primary purpose, which ought to be academics. You can do politics also. I don't say that students should be sanitized. I mean, students are idealistic. There will be, anti-establishment. They will want to change the world. They want to be, radical, fine. But I felt that things were going too far. And there was actually a more sinister, I felt sinister because it was not honest. It was not in the tradition of JNU where you could dissent and debate. But here dissent was being silenced, okay? And so I thought somebody had to speak up. And I happened to be the person to do that and to challenge the then JNU SU Students' Union president, Mr. Kanhaiya Kumar, who belonged to a union, student union affiliated to the CPI, Communist Party of India, not Communist Party of India, CPI, a Marxist-Leninist, which is still a ruling party in Kerala. But now that Kanhaiya has already joined the Congress Party. So some of the things I was talking about have actually come true because unlike my other comrades, in a way, I think I was reading the signs. I was reading like a kind of theorist or a social scientist what was actually unfolding, which was an attempt to foment a student rebellion, a student movement across many campuses in India to delegitimate an elected government. Now, you know, you may not agree with someone, you may have a different political point of view, but if you believe in democracy, and if people have been voted to power, there were specious arguments like, oh, Narendra Modi only got 32% of the popular vote. We're talking about 2014. So I asked Kanhaiya Kumar, what percentage of the vote did you get? 8,000 students, you only got 880 votes, right? So only 1,200 people voted out of 8,000. So you were elected, I said to him, by an even smaller percentage, a tiny sliver. And what makes you question the legitimacy of an elected government, which has 33% of the popular vote, whereas you got only 150 votes or something more than your nearest rival? So in the end, it boils down to ideology, that you are legitimated by ideology and you delegitimate somebody because you don't like their ideology. And this is where I use Marx, because Marx said ideology is not just a system of thought, of organized thought. Ideology is also false consciousness, whether it's religious ideology or political ideology, whatever ideology. And I further define it as something you can't falsify. So no matter how much evidence is piled up against it, you continue to believe it because it's like an article of faith. And this is what I found in JNU, that you know, communism is falsified as an ideology. It doesn't work in terms of economics. China is not a communist country in that sense. And yet you want to believe in something that the world has turned its back to. And if you think that carrying out a morcha in the morning at 11 o'clock from a hostel to the admin building is going to bring about revolution, then you're living in a fool's paradise, you know. So let me just, rather than talking, read a little excerpt, which also to me, I hope illustrates, you know, how JNU is a symbol. It's not just a university, okay? It's a place which represents what is happening in India on a wider scale, right? So the culture wars in which we are embroiled at the moment, excuse me, JNU has been the site of these culture wars. And in this book, I try to show that the hijacking of a university is really bad news for civil society, because if universities become, should I say, overrun by a particular group of people who want to take them from their original purpose, which is to read, write, think, study, and reflect deeply on issues that matter, and turn it into some kind of political platform, then it does not augur well for our society. So this was what I felt, that the closure of the Indian mind, if you want to use that phrase, starts with the, as it were, the breakdown of open conversations in a university. And that's why I felt intermedial hermeneutics was so important, where you can steer between these opposing poles. So when I said JNU is a symbol, I noticed that in a very strange way. And I want to talk about one of the lowest points of this entire 5 years, when you had these masked hoodlums, I call them, streaming through the campus, destroying property, and even beating up faculty and students. In fact, one of my own faculty colleagues was manhandled. So I call this Cry My Beloved University, and it's from chapter 9, How Not to Destroy Jnu. So I'll just read this excerpt and then maybe we can have a Q&A. The lowest point in JNU's decline in living memory occurred on 5th January 2020. Sadly, some might say, luckily, I was not in JNU on that fateful evening. masked hoodlums went on a rampage inside the campus, injuring several students, even a couple of teachers. They roamed the hostels and buildings armed with sticks, hammers, bricks, and rocks. Later, the usual narrative war of mutual recriminations and accusations broke out, with both the left and right blaming each other for the violence. As it happened, I was in Mumbai. It was a Sunday evening. I remember it so clearly. My wife and I were invited by our friends to the wet wicket, the watering hole of the Cricket Club of India. We had just finished ordering. Suddenly, I started getting frantic calls and messages from the US. Are you all right? Is everything okay? Then came a call from someone very close. Where are you? I hope you're not injured. I responded, we're in Mumbai, we're fine. What happened? Thank God, the voice said. I heard after a pause, there are rioting mobs in JNU. They've invaded the campus and are beating up students and teachers. I felt a sick sense of pain and alarm in the pit of my stomach, and then anger. I immediately started checking up on my phone. In my 20 years at JNU, such an incident had never happened. Even in the worst of times, hooligans on campus beating up people, wrecking things, breaking into hostels, labs and offices, worst of all, attacking teachers and students, this was unprecedented and shameful. Now JNU is just like Delhi University, Jamia Millia Islamia, Aligarh Muslim University, Banaras Hindu University, Jadavpur, University of Hyderabad, the Maulana Azad National Urdu University. What did all these universities have in common? They were reputed central universities, for one, but all of them were also strongholds of recent student agitations against some policy or other of the Modi government. More to the point, all of them witnessed pitched battles between student groups or between students and authorities. They were all sites of a serious and simmering discord and unrest, even violence. Coming back to my beloved JNU, there was blood on the asphalt. Horrifying, certainly shocking, of course, also exceptional because this had never happened before. Immediately I thought, was there a pattern? Were these brawls politically instigated or supported? Who were the perpetrators? Who were the beneficiaries? Who were the victims? Who were responsible? Paid hoodlums, professional thugs and rioters, or student factions? Why did the university administration fail to act in a timely fashion to prevent and control the outbreak? Returning to our temporary lodgings at Cuff Parade, we passed by a protest at the Gateway of India that night, right opposite the Taj Hotel. To my surprise, it was being led by Umar Khalid, formerly also of JNU. It was being, again, Azadi slogans were being shouted. NRC se Azadi, CAA se Azadi, Jativad se Azadi, Sanghvad se Azadi, RSS se Azadi, Mohan Bhagwat se Azadi. I heard the slogans myself. Later, I saw the video which corroborated it. We visited the Gateway of India the following evening to have tea at the Taj Mahal Hotel. The whole place was barricaded. The protests, I realized, were still going on. Right opposite the iconic hotel. We did manage to get in though. When we stepped out, I thought of checking out the protesters. Of course, they didn't say hijab se azadi, triple talaq se azadi, love jihad se azadi, Shaheen Bagh se azadi. No. As in other protests, I could see that there was a communal and Islamist slant to the constitutionalist and secularist garb at play. Maharashtra, currently ruled by the strange coalition of the Shiv Sena, the Indian National Congress, and the Nationalist Congress Party. No surprise then that Umar Khalid was addressing yet another Azadi rally there. Nothing in India, it would seem, was untouched either by politics or in fact by JNU itself. There in JNU, mobs were running amok on campus. Here, a former JNUite charged with sedition was leading yet another anti-government rally. Business as usual. Thank you. Thank you so much. Here's the book. I hope people feel inspired to read it and engage with it. Thank you once again, Preeti, for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Makarand. And we'll open up. We have a few people who've sent in questions. So if we can take them one by one. Sarabjot, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. In fact, I was just going through Jawaharlal Nehru's vision about the universities. After all, this university is named after him. And before I make my observations, I would just like to read for the viewers what he had to say about the universities. The first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru University, says, the university stands for humanism and tolerance, for reason, for ideas, and search for truth. It stands for forward march of human race towards even higher objectives. And of course, we have Benjamin Franklin saying that it is a place of light, liberty, and learning. And then we have Tagore, who says, where the mind is without fear and head is held high. Now, he has said it for the nation, but I think it applies to the university as much, where knowledge is free, where the world has not broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, and where words come out from the depth of truth. Now, when the moment I say these words, truth, again, because you were talking, Professor Paranjape, about this reading that you did just now. So when we talk about truth, these times we also talk about post-truth, I could only see one side of the story, because I remember that couple of years ago, we also see, you mentioned about these masked, miscreants who went about beating up, students and faculty. But I also recall that there was a suspected role of ABVP also, which got involved in, who got involved in beating up the agitating students. So I think there was another side to the coin. It was being done both ways. And I think just making it a case of ideology against ideology, I would also like to hear from you that what were the real issues involved if we keep the ideologies aside, or this face-off between two ideologies, that is CPI and that is RSS or ABVP ideology. I think what were the real issues involved against which these students were protesting? Because that becomes the core of agitation. One, I would like to know from you about those issues. And I still feel that, again, if we were talking about Azadi from, as you said, NRC, CEA, these are the issues which have been really, have been very controversial issues. And there has been a lot of divisiveness on these issues between different groups and sections of society. So again, I think if they were putting up, this also was misconstrued because most of the people only focused on the word Azadi, as if, that these people were disregarding the freedom that we have already got. But I think it is good that you put it in context that they were only asking for Azadi from particular issues that they stood against. But again, if we put them against this whataboutery thing, that Azadi from triple talaq and Azadi from, love jihad, I think, again, we are creating that divisiveness in our narrative. So we should, I think, focus on the issues in which they were talking about, the issues that they were mentioning with reference to JNU or even at national level, as you mentioned, rather than pitching them against certain ideological issues that, that come in the realm of whataboutery. So I just want your views on this, about the real issues, irrespective of the ideologies, and this always resorting to whataboutery to, counter maybe a very genuine discourse that is taking place in Indian society.
Well, you have to read the book, sir. I mean, there's no way I can explain all the arguments in the book. And reading an excerpt is not, it's just to give you a flavor. So obviously there were some FIRs that were lodged, and yet the perpetrators have not been brought to book for what happened in January 2020. Therefore, obviously there's so much of cover up and other things that's going on. But you're reading Jawaharlal Nehru, that's what I'm also trying to refer to, that the Act of JNU says that the university should be dedicated to some of the ideals of Nehru, which also include national integration, not national disintegration. Now you have a small group of students who want to, take out this protest on false pretexts to commemorate Afzal Guru, Maqbul Bhatt. Who are these people? I mean, why are we commemorating them? They've got due process, and we have to understand why I call these people a kind of fringe. Umar Khalid, the breakaway of Democratic Student Federation, which is a breakaway. And these people, Anirban, Umar, they say, oh, we broke away because there was not enough democracy. And they belong, I mean, the parent organization believes in an armed overthrow of the Indian government. They do not respect the constitution, the rule of law. So here are people who say there's a judicial murder when they don't respect the judiciary, they don't respect the constitution. So my whole point is that it is not a question of this ideology or that ideology. It is the capture of a university by a small group, I would say not more than 100, 200 students, who will not let others study, who will not let people go to classes, who will not let the normal functioning of the university happen. So for me, this is what was alarming. Now, if one is trying to say that these issues are legitimate, fine. They may be legitimate in some political sphere, but you cannot say that the university will not be allowed to function. Why will it not be allowed to function? Because a few people shouted some slogans, other people objected. Now they're saying the government is illegitimate. So what I'm really trying to say is that as a teacher, as a lifelong teacher, okay, all I've done my whole life is study, and teach, so I think I'm a truth seeker. Okay? For till this day, I mean, not a day in my life goes if I don't read, write, think, and study. Now, what does anybody, like, I respect my students, but what gives them the right to ensure that if other people, their own peers, they want to come to my class, okay, they want to study, these 100 students will blockade all the buildings and shut down the university. Who gives them that right? So in the name of dissent, in the name of freedom, in the name of this or that, a lot of, should I say, sinister and unethical, and I would say really practices which are bad not only for the future of the university, but for society were taking place, and you couldn't speak up, because if you spoke up against these people, then they had these, what I call the Pancha Bakar, okay? So Pancha Bakar means first you get branded, okay? They say, oh, ye to Sanghi hai, ye falana hai, ye dhikna hai. You get branded. After that, they try to brainwash you. Then they bully you, okay? Then they boycott you. And if nothing works, then they, pardon my language, they bullshit you. Like they start writing letters against you. They get you involved in something. Somebody filed a defamation against me. this book itself, they tried to cancel. This was signed up with another publisher, international publisher. And I'm not going to disclose names and everything because I promised I wouldn't do that because I got out of that contract. You know, when the book was about to go to press, okay, the cover was done, 2 proofs were read. Suddenly I get this letter saying, we want to go turn it through one more legal edit, okay? And 183 omissions, corrections, or revisions were forced down my throat. Then I also consulted some lawyers, this, that, and I found finally, I said, you give me back my book, here's your advance, because it's a way to censor you, to throttle you. So let's not be naive here. This is a culture war, and they will stifle you, they will cancel you. And it is this that my book speaks out against. It is not a one-sided thing, as you said, sir, because you should first read the book before you say these things. Read the book and see what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is that from the ideal of a leftist university where people agitated for a better world and studied deeply, I saw a JNU which was captured ideologically by a small group of people, which was stifling dissent. And the flashpoint came after the election of Narendra Modi, when they wanted to shut the university down and create a nationwide student movement, okay? And I began to discover the missing links gradually because I've taught at University of Hyderabad. I know how the caste politics there started. So many of you are associated with universities. My request to everyone is depoliticize these campuses, please. It's our taxpayers' money. You know, don't have political interference. Put limits to what politics can do on a campus. Let a university, anywhere in the world you see this. The primary function of a university is to impart knowledge. But in JNU and other places, almost free lodging and boarding, even today, 1,500 rupees subsidized mess, 20 rupees hostel fees a month, the cheapest accommodation in South Delhi, no limit to how many years you can spend there. Okay, what's going on? You have created a system where at state expense, you are training cadres which are going against the state. You created this system and then you camouflage it. You pull out you protect these people because the same teachers then have their students, the same people get recruited. And this was a racket and someone had to talk about it. And this is what has happened. Now, that doesn't mean that the other side is doodh ke dhule hain. No, that's not what my book is saying. Once again, I repeat, intermedial hermeneutics is a path where reductive and oppositional polarities can be negotiated for a fairer and inclusive and dialogic society. And unless you have this, you know, I'm afraid that the repercussions for generations to come are going to be really bad.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Paranjape. And I think next discussion we'll have after I have read your book, because my question was only based on, limited to the discussion that we've had. So
thank you, sir. Thank you.
I would certainly go through that book.
I look forward to that, sir. I look forward to that.
Can I come in here? Can I?
Do you, yeah, please do. Aapne haath, you raised your hand, please.
Yes. Makarand, I'll ask you 3 direct questions and you can answer. One is that the episode that we normally talk about that happened on the JNU campus, you can easily see that it is just the tip of the iceberg. That was just one of the things. There are larger issues which are now, I think, surround us in this country. And probably that was one of the reasons that happened. I think you know those things better. I don't have to tell them. My first question is that what you also mentioned, that your mission statement, the JNU mission statement about ideology on which Nehru worked, they use these words: national integration, social justice, secularism, and democratic way of life, etc., etc. Secularism, I would like to know, first of all, how good university has been in matching up to those ideas. Number one, that's first question. The second is about secularism. I guess university is a citadel of scholars, ideologues, thinkers. In what way do you think the meaning of secularism has changed over the years? As I understand, secularism is that state is secular. State is neutral to all religions. State shall not patronize any religion, and state shall take care that everybody who follows whatever religion they do it in a kind of private, peaceful manner, so that the public is not disturbed, others are not disturbed. We can see that very clearly now. Things are not happening that way. Now state is patronizing one particular religion, or let's say they are patronizing all religions. In the process, they are promoting all religions. So in what way do you think this kind of change in the meaning of secularism has affected our politics? My third question is more pointed. You are talking about depoliticizing campuses. My dear, your own Vice Chancellor, Dr. Pandit, you know that she has been speaking a lot against farmers. She has been tweeting against AAP. She has been tweeting against, number of other issues, and she has been writing articles on Hindutva and Hindu nationalism. We don't mind that. What I'm saying is that she has been political arena. If she in the political area, how do you have the capacity to politics free? That's my major question. And the last one is just an example that if these people spoke against, whatever ideology the Sarkar was following at the time, we also have an example of Nivedita Menon. A police case was registered against her because she spoke something against or on Kashmir. And we also have hundreds of scholars who kind of signed a petition saying that she should be saved. They try to kind of, they went to the extent of hurting her, or even say disparaging her for whatever. So do you think this is not a retaliation? It's a probably retaliation of the other kind. Are we going to live with this kind of retaliation or these polar, or university is going to do something and the politics is going to do something to, pacify these issues? These are 2 or 3 questions that I have in mind. I would like you to comment on that, since you are more aware about these things than I am.
Thank you for these questions. And see, you're a very experienced and senior academic. In my view, you already know the answers to these questions, which is to say that obviously some of these so-called sedition laws and these other ways of harassing citizens, it's a part of our colonial legacy. I don't support, this sort of stifling, of individual voices. And for a cartoon, people are going to jail. For writing a post on Facebook, there's somebody in Maharashtra has been in jail for 1 month. In fact, this is a terrible state of affairs. I wrote about this. I said our nationalism cannot be so thin-skinned that we take offense at everything, even the slightest thing. And it can't be so thick-skinned, like say our neighbors on the right side, where you kill hundreds of people and people all over the world protest and they don't care. So we should have a robust but self-interrogative type of nationalism, right? So now people are calling for the death of a party spokesman who's been, as it were, removed from a position. What kind of a society is this, all right? So I'm in complete sympathy with you that these trends are horrifying to me. And now coming to what I mean by depoliticizing. What I mean is vice chancellor appointments, teachers' appointments, selection of students, all these things should be without regard as much as possible and without interference from political processes, okay? The university should function as it happens elsewhere. You go to the United States, there are state-funded schools. They are like, the University of California system, the State University of New York system, huge systems. I went to a state-funded school, the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana. They have billions of dollars received from the state, but no politician, no governor calls up the president of the university and says, you know what, here's my man, iski appointment karwa do. It's never done. That is what we need. We need an iron wall of separation. No interference from any political. Now, you've been at GNDU, you know better than me. Central universities we thought were a little better than state schools, but it's worse. Now everywhere there's interference, okay? Now this is what I mean, because you are vitiating the entire purpose of a university. And then political parties capturing the student body through their affiliates. This is not the way. You can have student government. Student politics means you can have student government. You can have elections, but you can't have political parties, registered political parties with their wings and outfits on campuses recruiting students. No, because then you've made the university an extension of the polity, which it should not be. So I have made all these points clear in the book. At the end, I've said how to save JNU. I want people to think about this because it's your money and my money. The investment is enormous, and universities like JNU, look, 2 cabinet ministers are from JNU, right? There are thousands of top civil servants in JNU, from JNU, all over India. Wherever you go, you'll find some JNU person. Now you want to demonize this university and destroy it? No, that's not the way. In fact, higher education itself is in a crisis, and JNU is a symptom of that crisis. These are the points I've tried to make, and you don't have, you go to humanities and social studies today, you don't have competence. I've been training PhD students now for such a long time. I taught research methodology. Even in JNU, you can't write 5 pages clearly. You ask students, you write a proposal, you bring me 3 pages, tell me what you want to say. They can't. So this is the abysmal level in terms of the drop of standards. And this is not true just to JNU. JNU is supposed to be one of the best. I see it universally. And nowadays, I have stopped accepting examinerships of PhDs because I know it will be so bad of most of our universities. In some ways, the IITs are better because IITs have some systems in place, okay? And JNU, by the way, I think it's one of the great places, one of the great universities of the world. The reason I say it is because it's got a level of freedom, which also means a level of unaccountability, okay? So you can either thrive in that freedom or you can come to nothing, okay? You can just be wasting your time. But to me, freedom is absolutely essential. So that brings me back to your first question, to protect the autonomy of a university, to respect the statutes, the ordinances, the rule of law, to have the disciplinary procedures in place. Now, you have all this, why don't you use these and punish the offenders? Why are you protecting people? Because they belong to one dispensation, This is not right. You're sending a wrong message, isn't it? So my whole point is this. All your 3 questions are linked to the same thing, that our crisis today is not a crisis of ideology. It is a crisis of integrity. And I keep saying, as I get older, I've almost become ideology, agnostic. I don't care what your ideology is. Kya farak padta hai? You believe what you like. But do you have integrity? Do you keep your word? Okay. Have you really understood what you're talking about? Okay. I ask such questions, I ask very simple questions to people. I know I don't judge people by what, what their ideology is. You believe whatever you like. This is a free country, but I would like to examine these beliefs. What is the source of this belief? Where is it coming from? Okay, whatever this belief is, and what are the limits? What are the limits to your, interrogation? Because if you tell me that, acha, now you have to keep quiet because if you say one more word, you'll get beaten up. That's not a free society. Okay, that's not what a university is about.
Yeah, Makarand, I would just like you to kind of come back to secularism. You think
Sorry.
our change in the concept of secularism has it damaged our polity?
See, I think that we have made a colossal failure insofar as trying to be a secular state. Because right from the beginning, we tried to play politics, okay, with religion, right from the beginning. First of all, the subcontinent, whatever, you face it in Amritsar, every family has a history of trauma. Okay, this was such a terrible thing. And it was because of religion. Now, suppose you said, okay, you chose to be a religious state. You call yourself Pakistan, fine. We don't want to be like that. If you said that, you should have stuck to it, but you didn't, right? From day one, you started playing with this, some appeasement. Why? What business has the state to send people on a Hajj? What does Hajj to do? Tell me, what does Hajj to do with the government of India?
Absolutely.
Now, today, Kejriwal is sending people to Ayodhya for a pilgrim. What is your business, dude? I mean, you are taking taxpayers' money. What are you doing? Regardless of who you are, which political party, if one is doing it, now the other is doing it. This is not the business of the state. So first you have appeasement, now you have aggression. I've written about this. I've said aggression is not the answer to appeasement. The answer to appeasement is be fair. Treat everybody the same. Same rule for everyone. Are we doing it? No. Today, we have tilted to majoritarianism. Earlier, we were playing the minoritarian card. You cobble up all the minorities, you put them together, and you have a ruling coalition. Now you play the 80-20. Boss, iska bhi jurmana dena padega someday. So I don't think majoritarianism is per se better than minoritarianism. No. So let's be honest. That's why I'm saying I'm interested in integrity. Okay, and the state is paying all these madrasas in several parts of India. Why should religious education be funded by the state? You fund so-called secular education. I come from St. Stephen's College. 50% of the seats are for Christians. Why is that? Why is that? If 50% of the seats are for Christians, you raise 50% of your resources. No, you get 100% of your grant, from the government, which is your money and my money. Why should you take, Delhi University, all the teachers in St. Stephen's are paid, okay, by the state of India, but 50% are reserved for Christians. Isn't it a way to incentivize, one community at the expense of the others? This is not right. So higher education, through political interference and through all of these nonsensical ideas, has become a mockery. Almost every seat is attached to some quota. Somebody said, oh, what about the general? Arey boss, general is also quota of some other kind of quota, you see. So this is a mess. And if you want to change, if you're a person who is an idealist, I feel I'm an idealist in the sense that, I believe in this country. I believe in the people of this country. And I think we have something to offer to the world. We have to start telling the truth about ourselves to ourselves and to our children. That, look, we say all these pious things, but this is what we did. Okay? And we are still playing these games. So let's be honest. And it is only through honesty that dhire, 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 we can move forward. This is what I feel. From this divisive polity to something that is more inclusive, And the other day I was speaking about this book, and then someone brought in some contemporary controversy. And I said, yeah, you can't punish people who are victims of violence that happened in the past, okay? You can't punish them today, but at least let people dissociate themselves from some things that happened, okay? Let us dissociate and say, okay, so much vandalism happened. We don't like it. We believe in live and let live, not live and let die, okay? That only I will and my culture, my religion will thrive, everyone else will go to hell. No, we should stand up and say this is against the human rights, of non-believers also have rights. Everybody has rights. So how can we say that, all of, these ideologies are equal? No, they're not equal. So that's what I was trying to say, that when I ask my JNU students, you talk about communism, have you read Frank D. Cotter? Have you read Arthur Koestler? Have you read the Black Book on Communism? This is a blood-soaked history of intolerance. And you go to Tiananmen Square, I've been to China 9 times. In a pub, you can criticize the government. You hold up a placard, you'll disappear. Why don't you talk about this? When I gave my talk on the nationalism debates in JNU, Kanhaiya Kumar was the so-called chair. He invited a Chinese student to speak for 7 minutes. He didn't let me speak. So this is the kind of what I call lack of integrity that we have displayed. You can't criticize the fatherland, so-called China, the fatherland, okay? Now,
we have, Makarand, we have 3 more people who have questions, plus a couple that have come in chat. So if I can invite them one by one, and we'll go over time, I think maybe 15-20 minutes then in that case, because I think we should have this debate, since this is, it was not meant to be a conversation. We just thought we'll pull out more threads and so on. So I think you're here, Dave. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course we can hear you.
We cannot see you, or maybe.
No, of course, Preeti is there. His visual is there.
Sorry?
I'm here.
I said his visuals are there.
Yeah, fine. Ji, yes.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to listen to Professor Paranjape. I was not a direct student, but I heard you on several occasions. And trust me, I would not have been in JNU if it was not subsidized. I came from a very poor family in Bihar. And though I have an upper caste name, I did not have sufficient resources to carry out higher education. So in that regard, I would thank the democratic space of JNU and the institutional possibilities that it offers to students like me. Now that I am a teacher for the last 15 years, today, for the last few years, it's been my perpetual dilemma as a teacher in the classroom as to what to do with this kind of polarity, the schematic polarity, the intellectual polarity, philosophical polarity, which has been so solidly created that even students are not willing to find a line which will be for free reasoning. Instead, is there either left or it is right. And right has become so strong that your hard work, this book, which has almost suffered censorship, as you said, is being vouched by line of advanced praises with the language which is still, which subscribes to that polarity. It ignites that fear in me. So while I join you in your concern toward the end of the book, as to how to save JNU, we all love JNU. I do not know whether your recommendations would be really effective. Depoliticizing can that be an answer? Can our fear of politics result into this kind of alternative of depoliticizing? We are all aware that there has been something historically significant as students' movement all over the world. And we have also witnessed all kind of pitfalls of student movement, but we have also seen important results, even in the context of India. We remember JP movement and all. I'm sure you have seen those things far more closely. I've just read about them. So I understand your personal grudges about the vanguard leadership in JNU politics. And like you, many other people have shared similar kind of grudges. I was, as a student, fence sitter and critical insider, and yet I could not find a reason to really dismiss that model of politics. I mean, higher education in some way or other is political. If you want to depoliticize campuses, probably you will have to shut down higher education itself. So, I mean, we have to really think twice when we say the word depoliticizing. Secondly, because it is, the book is good effort, but then it still subscribes to that polarity, that schematic polarity, which gives concern as to how it would, I mean, I remember you talking about Gandhi in a time and Bhagavad Gita in a time in that campus when it was difficult to talk about Gandhi Gita. When to sound progressive, one had to start by using a few cuss words about Gandhi and any of the religious texts. So with that kind of, Professor Paranjape that I am familiar with, I just don't understand, why do you have to surrender yourself to this polarity? Because an eye for an eye would make the whole world blind, as you have taught us.
No, I think, Devji, you have to go and read chapter 4, Tagore, Gandhi, Jnu, and what's left of the nation, okay? There you'll be very happy to see there's no surrender and there's no sellout. Please read that. But, I take some of your points to heart. For example, there are hundreds of ways of this funding issue. I believe in the gift of economy, pay as you like. Make JNU free. I've even proposed that. But don't pretend to take fees of 20 rupees a month and then say that, oh, we are fee-paying students, we have rights. What is my right? I want a better cooler. I want to free this. I want to free that. I mean, I find all this bogus, completely bogus, intellectually dishonest. So my fight has been against intellectual dishonesty. And intellectual dishonesty is not just hypocrisy or humbug. It is a deeper malaise. Now you use the word depoliticize. I use it in a very specific way. I do not mean that you don't have your own ideology or a way of thinking. I mean it in terms of interference, slanting, in appointments, recruitment, syllabus. You can see the kinds of things that were taught in JNU. You've never had a course in the history of JNU which was on critiques of communism. Why not? Why not? Why was it silenced? Why didn't anybody teach a course of that kind? So when I taught a course on Gandhi for the first time, there were so many people raising their eyebrows, like, why should he be teaching a course on Gandhi? Just to give you an example. So, and yet, as I said, I never felt unsafe. You talked about fear. I've never felt unsafe in JNU. It's my home, and I was geared out by these students. They said, you can't enter into the building. I said, why can't I enter? That's not democratic. Eventually I got in. The dean retreated, everybody retreated. So I'm not going to give up that easily. So my point is that I'm not, I don't subscribe to this notion of fear that you're saying. I'm not afraid of politics, okay? That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that in the name of politics, you have destroyed these higher education institutions. Like some places are a pitched battle only of caste. There's a polarity, Dalit, non-Dalit. Somewhere else it is tribal, non-tribal. You go to the Northeast. What is the discourse? What is the level of our intellectual engagement? It's only this, insider, outsider. Is this what academics is? So political correctness, wokeism, cancel culture, this has infected campuses all over. But in India, the special problems have to do with a certain kind of identity politics and now ideological polarization, which will eventually mean that you can't have these kinds of discussions. You can't have an open conversation because you'll immediately be branded and sooner or later someone will try to silence you, and God forbid someone will try to make a case. There was a defamation case against me, 50 lakhs. I'm an ordinary citizen. I spend my time reading and writing. Who has the energy to engage? Because they want to shut you down. These are the dangerous things. This is my point, okay? And I do hope that, I will defend my own Swaraj. I won it. It's a hard one, Swaraj. I'm where I am, not because of any patronage. I don't think anybody gave me a push, nor was I a beneficiary of any quota of any sort, nor of any scholarship from the government of India, not a penny received from the system, so to speak, okay? Every single of my appointments is an open selection. So if now I want to sell out, I think it'll be very sad. And I don't think it's likely either, Professor Pathak. I think it's too late for me, it's too late. When you enjoy your freedom so long, I don't think that there are incentives enough to sell out at the stage that I'm in. I've crossed 60 also. So I think I invite you to read the book. And once again, I say that I'm less and less interested in ideology as I grow older. And I'm more and more respectful of integrity, and I like people who keep their word, who are true to their friends, who don't betray trust, and who don't talk nonsense. When they read a book, they read it deeply, or when they voice an opinion, there's some thought behind it, and there's some sincerity of motive and purpose. And these are the people with whom I have my so-called satsang, which I cherish, whether it's on Madra House on a Saturday evening or with my students. I want to tell you, my time in JNU is not pleasant. I tell you, I have done more than 50 books, okay? And I have 2 students. What's going on? I think people should be flocking to learn from a person like me. It's a sad story, but I enjoy these 2 students because they're sincere. As soon as the class begins, they start asking me questions. So you don't need the numbers. You have to be true. And this is what made the civilization great. People were true to their, what you say, anubhuti, whether it is the Vedas or it is the Guru Granth Sahib. It's based on anubhuti. These were people who experienced something. Then there is the achar. They conducted themselves in a certain fashion. All of society could see them. Okay, and then the vichar came. So what you call this eksurta. People respect such people in India even today. And I left IIS. Even today, people will respect you. Because if you're true to what you said, you followed, you said, I'm going to do this, you tried to do this to the best of your ability. Even today, people will respect you. But if you betray trust, you promise something to someone, you don't do it, you make these petty deals behind someone's back, etc., etc. This is what has happened in academics. And this is the culture that I deplore. It's not left versus right. Let's have as much of an open debate between left versus right, okay? I don't have a problem with that.
Thank you. Sumel, are you here?
Gee, I'm very much here. Am I free to ask? Yeah.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Professor Makarand, I haven't read your book, but I intend to. That is
Thank you.
One thing.
Thank you.
Going by the excerpt that you chose to read here, it seems to me that from a very specific time slab that you have chosen, that is of very heightened tension, and a tension in which students were targeted not only by the police, by the state, but the way they were hounded by the media, and an whole atmosphere of antagonism, not only antagonism, but intimidation and targeted violence was kind of built up. And in those phases, university went through a certain turmoil, which it had to, because what was actually being done, that through those students who are otherwise extremely good scholars of their respective disciplines, they have been, yes, they still are. And what we find is that the very idea of JNU, that the state has been trying to tame this university for a very long period of time. I think even before you joined it, and that is one of the charms of being a student or a teacher in such a space, certain autonomy of ideas, and it was based upon what you said. And I find that phrase and that term that you employed extremely profitable, of intermedial hermeneutics, that we should be able to talk through these polarities. And I think JNU had that culture. I have witnessed it. Sometimes it was frayed at the edges, but it was always there. Now, what happens is that this intermedial hermeneutics, to operate, it needs a culture of dialogue. And a culture of dialogue requires a certain culture of abhorrence of violence. And I would like you to explore, and I'd see in your book, if this has been tackled with, that how the JNU administration has strategically allowed the use of violence by some groups against university students and otherwise. Now that use of violence to quell any kind of democratic dissent has reached to the proportions of foisting NSA, letting loose the very violent media houses and other such places, and creating an environment of public ill will against the university, that has also kind of hardened attitudes, positions on both the sides. And I think the students are in a distinct asymmetry of power against the accumulated powers of state. It also relates that when we talk about the student politics or the nature of debates about the country which are there, and you kind of say that they are not kind of grateful enough for the state to offer them a subsidized education. Well, I find that when a proposal came from central government to raise the fee, it led to a very militant mass demonstrations by the students, led by the JNUs. And they came out with a data that almost 40%, if not 60% of the students who come to JNU to study actually belong to the below poverty line families. There is no other university in India which offers quality education, world standards education to students who are below poverty line, who belong to below BPL families. I think, and when the question was said that this government is out to take away opportunities for good education from poor families, when the notion of class actually came out, I find that here was politics which was directly linked to a certain knowledge. What knowledge has to be in a poor third world country, what purpose it has to serve. If someone is out for lofty ideals of making knowledge available, we are all for it. Good luck to it, but it would be judged, it would be debated upon. And similarly, this kind of an, what should I say, a deification of knowledge per se is fine, but it should not then also allow others who employ this knowledge to create a certain politics, to say that, no, this politics is bad, knowledge is good. I don't study and JNU in institution where we learned how to relate with society. It had its problematic notions, it had its doubts. I am all for Gandhi. Gandhi is someone that we don't discuss openly somehow in being a Vaishnav. And one particular quality that he emphasizes in that is that a Vaishnav Jan is the one who feels the pain of others. And in that sense, Vaishnav Jan is quintessentially a political enemy. So this feeling of the pain of others JNU has been engage with this question and to judge ourselves according to it. In that sense, I am also reminded of another incident in early 90s when Mr. Lal Krishna Advani was not allowed to enter the premises of the university.
Makarand, do you want to go ahead? Because I think
Well,
it's recent.
By the students, by the JNU.
Yeah, I missed
I'm just
the
saying,
question because
I'm just finishing. I'm just on to my last 2 sentences. And then when editorial appeared in the Indian Express, which said that JNU is too unruly, JNU is too uncouth, it doesn't have any democracy and all that, and to instill discipline and ambition among students, a business management school must be started within the university to tame it. But this is one way, and our teacher, Professor Abhijit Pathak, answered it, who defended the character of the students who were protesting, that it is they who lend a certain poignancy to this campus. Otherwise, if left to merely the academicians, then we see that the universities where there is not a thriving students movement, what is the situation in those universities? What has been going on there? And in Punjab, we are witness to not just a gradual decline, but a total collapse of the university system, which otherwise is working well in buildings and in admissions and in fee collection. But to call it a university is a certain leap of faith. JNU, in that sense, remains a university thriving with students, with ideas, and with such dissenting voices like you. And I feel that this dialogue should continue, but this culture of violence, which has been planted there, not by the students, but by the administration in cahoots with the wider state powers, has led to a certain hardening and loss of that culture of dialogue, which has made intermedial hermeneutics almost a utopian dream in these circumstances. I hope it returns back. Thank you very much for the time.
So that was a wonderful intervention. Thank you. I don't know what to say. I just want to say that violence is not just of one kind. You can silence someone through, as I said, bullying, boycott, browbeating, all kinds of methods are used to silence dissent. And JNU had all these kinds of violence against the ideological enemies of the left. I've faced it myself. I've been targeted. In fact, after I was hired, I mean, my appointment was questioned in the academic court by a senior leftist who is a journalist. He said, "Oh, how did you hire this person?" You know, imagine that in the sense that I already joined, and the Vice Chancellor had to say it's a appointment that has been approved by the, EC and, etc. So I'm just saying the violence and the intimidation, marginalization, silencing that you're talking about was going on campus long ago. And it was being done by the so-called leftists, who were doing this over and over again to a number of people. There have been so many cases of university professors who have not been promoted, who have been hounded out, who have been tortured because they were seen as not conforming. Okay, many students were not allowed to finish their PhD. There's a underside to JNU we don't know. We romanticize it. As to the fees, when the fees, you talk about fees, there are hundreds of ways of there are student loans, and I even said make it free, make it a gift economy, pay as you will. For me, it was sad to see that those who were at the forefront of the agitation against fees, some of them were wealthy students, and many of them were paying 2 or 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 rupees. Their parents paid more than that when they were in school, and they came to JNU, and suddenly they became a champion of 20 rupees a month fees. So for me, it was these contradictions that were a cause of concern, okay? And the space to ask these questions was actually shrinking. But You know, I completely agree with you, sir, that the book is a history of a small slice of JNU, about 5 years, which was a very difficult time and it was already polarized. So it is only in that light that it can be read. And as I said, there were so many other things that happened. One student went missing, another one committed suicide, hundreds of things happened. The book documents a lot of these, but at the heart of it, and I invite your attention again, Dr. Pathak, to the central argument in the book, which is in chapter 4, which is what kind of society, what kind of a nation do we want to be? And I think that when we answer that question, we will also know what kind of university we want to be. And I don't believe that the answers to these questions are, should I say, not interrelated. I think they're deeply interrelated, you know. And once again, I feel that whether you allowed what Lal Krishna Advani to come or not to come, or Gherowd, another former Shiksha Mantri Nishank ji, or didn't let the Vice Chancellor visit his family or go to the toilet for 15 hours. I don't think these things make a university great. I'm sorry, I tend to disagree. Reading, writing, thinking, ultimately are the things that make a university great. And if you stood up against the emergency, that's fantastic. I mean, Abhijit Banerjee went to jail for a few hours, but when Abhijit Banerjee comes to JNU, nobody knows who he is. This is the sorrow of JNU which I've outlined here. And Rahul Kanwal tells people, "Aapne ye kitab padhi hai?" The student say, "Kaun hai? Kaun si kitab hai?" Then someone says, "Inko Nobel laureate hai. Ye to inko Nobel Prize mila hai. Ye aapki school ke hai." Then they all want selfies with him. So I'm just saying, whatever JNU was at the times of Prakash Karat and Jairas Banerjee, D.P. Tripathi, you know, and Anand Kumar and the free thinkers and so on and so forth, that was not the JNU of Kanhaiya Kumar, okay? It's not the same JNU because the knowledge base had shrunk and people were not able to defend positions because they had not read widely or deeply, and it had become already a platform which was infiltrated, in my view, you know, by people who didn't care, you know, for these values that you and I were talking about. But I think we've had a fairly long session, and I once again.
We have one last speaker now. Makarand, you have to hear him as well because Kishore is here, and we close after that.
So, Professor Paranjape, thank you for allowing me this time. Very quick question, observation. As I mentioned at the beginning of the program, I did a little speed read of the book, so I would like to read it in greater depth. But one or two things strike me. I mean, you have called for balance on both sides of the ideological divide, left and right. But somehow I came away with the impression that you were less critical of the right than you were of the left. Also, maybe you'll agree that, you know, the far left, far right are two sides of the same coin. They're cousins, you know, they're both equally narrow-minded. They're not willing to compromise. They want to impose their will upon the other. So I wonder what you have to say about that. Also, another thing, I came across this little coinage of an acronym for the left liberals. And, you know, in the Hindi heartland, that's not very parliamentary language. And I wonder whether that was tongue-in-cheek, whether it was deliberate or unintended. And I'm talking of left liberals. I've never heard that earlier.
Of course, it's not original. It was already in circulation and I adopted it. But, you know, I want to make this very clear, Mr. Thukral, that, you know, I'm not interested in monkey balancing, okay? I'm center-right. It is, I mean, my position is very clearly identifiable. I don't see any need to say a few critical comments against the right just to show I'm not neutral. I'm more aligned to the right, okay? I support Narendra Modi, I did. I feel that he's a change agent. But I mean, what is the point of it? The point of it is simply this, that I want to be clear about who I am, what I stand for, what I've written about in this text. It's not that intermedial hermeneutics means that you're completely in the middle. No. It really means that among the Hindutvites also you need intermedial hermeneutics between the soft Hindutva and the hard Hindutva. Right while we are talking, somebody in the chat box says, please don't talk about Guru Granth Sahib. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Right now, this is going on. Why can we not talk about this? Why can't we talk about any text, any tradition in this country? Because already, this is the point, already you're afraid, you know, and maybe we need a different session of Madra House for this. But this is the atmosphere. You know, so I want to say that it's not my duty to criticize Narendra Modi or the BJP or the RSS. You know, Pratap Bhanu Mehta did it. And I have responded to him in this book, in the sense that it was already a debate we were having. Everyone should, if you don't like somebody, you criticize them. What's wrong with that? Don't expect me to criticize them, okay? So my point is simply this. My point is that I'm trying to present in this book a certain point of view of what happened in JNU. It's a history of the times, as it were, but it's also an institutional history. And in fact, it's interesting because I feel the culture of JNU is going to swing from the left to the right, okay? And they know how to do it. You know, we can't go into it just now, there's no time. But the institutional takeover, capture, and change from red to saffron or whatever, this is happening everywhere. You open your eyes. And my point is, this is not what universities should be about. Okay? This is not what universities are about. Universities are about, you know, you have to develop disciplinary competence. So suppose I get a degree in sociology or in English,
students of your
or in political studies. I need to know certain fundamental things about my discipline. I cannot be only ideologically competent and have no other competence, you see? So I'm worried as a teacher about these things. And someone else also said, look around you in the universities and accept a few universities or institutes which are largely technical, where there are some objective yardsticks. What we've got now is a lot of confusion, because now even when PhD students come right here in JNU, and I say, okay, you want to work on such and such a topic, what have you read? And they have read not even a secondary source, they have read a summary of a secondary source. So these are the things that worry me as an academic, you know, that far from reading, now you know, there are people who have got a PhD in English who haven't read a single play of Shakespeare, who haven't read Milton, who don't know anything about Wordsworth, who haven't read Walt Whitman. Now, I'm not saying that these canonical texts are the only yardstick, but this is what's happening. You need some core competence, but I'm afraid that through all this cancel culture and wokeism and you know, this politically correct and that politically correct, in the end, we are going to get a generation, you know, who knows very little and who's in fact afraid of ideas, because the moment you open your mouth, you're afraid you're offending somebody. You're afraid to give offense. And this is the new dark ages that I'm afraid of. We're on the brink of a new dark age where people who read, write, think deeply and know what they're talking about, you know, where you can read a text which is more than 100 years old or 50 years old, you know, I mean, I was delighted that somebody was saying it's the anniversary of Abhinav Gupta. And I was actually able to read with the help. I mean, now there's apparatus, you know, to open a text, to be able to read what someone like that wrote and understand it. This is what we need. We need this deep cognition, which is only possible if you know languages well. And today you don't know any language well because our training is so poor. I'm not saying you should know English well. I warrant that we don't know Hindi well, or Punjabi well, or Gujarati, or Marathi, or Tamil, or Bengali. We all want to read in translation. So this is what's happening to India, and it's happening in different parts of the world because we're not able to read a text. So we don't know what the text actually means. So we are afraid. We have no confidence. We have no cultural confidence. We have no civilizational confidence. These are my issues, okay?
Thank you. You've made a lot of statements which are also quite dispiriting anyway in the end with the new dark ages and so on.
Well, it's for people like us, PP and Maja House, and I admire how from Amritsar you're doing things. You've got still the same spirit as when you were reading, I mean, when you were leading or running the book review for which I've written. So never say die. As long as there's a Maja House, things will carry on. That's my point. We have to do it. Nobody else can do it for us, you know. And then our children have to do it. You know, around our dining table, we could create an atmosphere where we should be able to ask any kind of question.
Thank you.
No, ask any question. Ask any question.
Yeah, which was actually the point of trying to do it like this, because this is a very different way of doing the sessions. I mean, we don't normally do this, but because I felt that most people have really not read the book so far. There are just a very few, you know, handful probably in the audience who have. And then I just thought it might be, you know, a good way to get into the discussion if you first spoke and then people came up with questions. And I am happy because I think it has expanded your thoughts. It has definitely helped us to think further. It's also been very energetic and energizing. And I feel like we've really listened to a lot of new thoughts and ideas that have been presented here, not just by you, Makarand, and thank you very much for being part of the Maja House online platform, but all of the speakers, the questioners who were here today, Sarabjot and Guruptesh, Sumail, Kishore, Dev, all of you. Thank you very much. There were a couple of other questions in chat, but because we are so out of time, I'm really not going to take them. Maybe I'll send them to you separately. Arvindaji, if you would say thank you from Amritsar now, since I've done it from Delhi.
Thank you so very much.
Everybody.
प्रीति जी, इस सेशन की ਜਿਹੜੀ खूबसूरती बहुत ज़्यादा खूबसूरती रही कि सोच ਦਾ मतभेद ਦਾ होना मनभेद ਦਾ होना नहीं है. That's a beauty. You know, you have a difference of opinion, but then each one has his own identity, his own concept of thought. But then it's really very important to have this kind of session. And like we were conducting the sessions where we will have a conversation between the author and the person who would take the conversation. I think probably we must follow this track also. You know, we should follow this. It's very interesting. So thank you so very much, Dr. Paranjape. बहुत मजा आया, बहुत खूबसूरत, and really wish के तुसी अमृतसर ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ Maja House ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਆਓ, that we can have a physical session with you, sir. And thank you once again from Amritsar. When we started the session, it was 43 degrees. Now it is 37 degrees. Cool down. So by the time we'll be signing off, it'll be a little more cooler. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, let's discuss ideas, but keep the temperature down. Okay. We should always have friendship in our hearts and openness. And certainly, I mean, I have enjoyed being a part of this conversation. I enjoy Amritsar very much. I'm not afraid of the high-fat food. Luckily, I've maintained my weight for many years. I love the food. I love going to Harmandir Sahib. and it's very special in my own heart, and therefore I thank you all the more for this invitation from that beautiful and sacred space. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much, and thank you, audience, for being very patient,
Thank
good
you.
listeners. Thank you. Thank you. Good night.